Big episode today of the Shea Anything Podcast. I know I always say that, but today it's true. We welcome our new co-host, Jerry Blevins, to the show. Lots to discuss with Jerry on his former teammate in Jacob deGrom and what deGrom's dealing with. We'll discuss movie recommendations from Jerry. We'll do the 3 battle rule. Again, no offense with Jerry. We'll talk about it all. It starts right now. Welcome to the show, everybody. A reminder to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. The Shea Anything Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. We appreciate it. And it's brought to you by Verizon. It's 5G built right for the Mets from the network more people rely on, only on Verizon. So it's Doug Williams with Jerry Blevins today. And Jerry has been on the podcast before, but now he's joining us in more of a full-time capacity. Every other week, Jerry will be on the show. And immediately, Jerry makes me look bad because he arrives with this very cool looking, like David Letterman's desk style microphone. And it sounds incredible. Here I am using the dangly 2011 Apple headphones. And Jerry, I mean, the pipes sound great.
Oh,
man.
But
anyway, man, we're
what
excited
an intro.
to have you. And I know that Mets fans are thrilled that you're joining us in a full-time capacity, man.
There's one thing that you're going to get from me, and that's a lack of professionalism with me personally. But if we talk about equipment, I can at least be professional on that level. So
yeah,
thank you for having me on, and I'm looking forward to it. Every other week is going to be fun.
Yeah, and Jerry, you know this from being on the actual team, but the Mets are never boring. I would say that's the one thing that I have learned, the main overarching idea from my now almost 7 years at SNY is that I've never spent a month with just like a normal average team with no storylines that aren't juicy. It's always interesting. So we'll always have something to cover. The Mets just tend to do that. So one of the segments that we want to do with Jerry is called The Hook. And, it's a double meaning. It's, the starting pitcher or reliever getting the hook either too early or at the perfect time or too late from Luis Rojas. And that's kind of the main gist of it. Also, Jerry had a mean hook of a curveball when he was on the mound. So, in my opinion, when I came up with this genius segment, I figured it had a dual meaning. But I want to specify it's 12:08 p.m. on Thursday afternoon. We are now awaiting a Jacob deGrom MRI. There's a lot we don't know as you're listening to this, but look, we know that he left the game again with an issue. And now this has been 3 or 4 issues this year with his body that he doesn't think they're interconnected. It certainly looks like they might be, but I just want to get your take, Jerry, on how he's wired, because the fact that he in now back-to-back starts has kind of taken himself out. How rare a quality in a pitcher do you think that is?
It's extremely rare. You don't come across guys like that, guys that are able to get over their ego and for the good of the team, for the good of themselves, be like, I need to come out of this game right now. Because ultimately you saw him in that last inning. I think he hurt or felt it when he was facing Sogard. And then you just see him on the mound, just being uncomfortable, right? You see him mentally start to battle through, like, all right, something's up. Let's figure this out. What am I feeling? And you see him kind of work mentally through that. And then for him, you see his frustration as he walked off the mound. He went straight into the dugout. I was watching the broadcast, and you see him kick, just angry, goes down because he knows that this is it. It's so mature, such a mature professional move for him to come out of that game right there. The only other pitcher I've ever talked to in my whole career that has that kind of mindset to where they're like, yeah, I need to come out, was Zach Greinke. I talked to Zach a lot through our Players Association, and he would be like, yeah, if I'm tired and we have a guy ready in the bullpen that's better than me at that moment, I have no ego. I'll take myself out and put him in. But for Jake to do that mentally, knowing that he has something going on with his body, he's done it a couple of times. He's so in tune, knowing what's going on. It's so frustrating for him to be able to do that. but it's a great sign that he has trust in himself, trust in the medical staff, and trust in the management with Luis Rojas to understand and believe what's going on, and for the front office to understand that he's doing the right thing. I think it was a great piece. It sucks for everybody involved, especially the Mets and Jacob deGrom, but it's the smart thing to do, is to pull himself out right there.
Yeah, and I'm curious, and again, this is speculative, but he has been so near perfect, the 0.54 ERA, whatever it is, that when he gives up a deep fly ball, on occasion when he gives up a walk, like it feels like a big deal. I know that they talk about stress innings and, high leverage situations just being different. The fact that maybe he's putting that much pressure on himself not to give up any runs so that his ERA, God forbid, goes above 1. Like, do you think he's pitching with an added level of stress just to live up to his own ERA every inning?
I don't think that factors into his approach at all. You've seen it through his Rookie of the Year campaign, to the World Series, to his first couple of Cy Youngs. The guy's out there for the team, and I think that's why the team loves him. He is a Mets player. He cares about winning baseball games. Does he care about personal, accomplishments? Absolutely. It's what gives him the competitive edge to be that good at it. He's not worried about winning or breaking records. He's worried about putting the Mets in a chance to win the World Series. He knows that the more innings he pitches, the better the Mets are going to be out there. And he understands that him pulling himself, in situations where he isn't a 100% and he could possibly injure himself if he throws more pitches, is about the team. It has nothing to do with himself.
So when somebody says, first of all, I guess my take on this is, I think the popular takeaway from last night was, you know what? Again, this is people who aren't in the manager's office or wherever these conversations are being had, but people are like, you know what? Put him on the injured list, put him on the shelf. Let's play the long game. Let him take a couple weeks off. And I hesitate to do that, not because I'm like, no, put him out there, but more because, like, nobody knows Jacob deGrom better than him. So his opinion matters the most. If any opinion matters more than his, it's whoever is looking at his MRI. That's the only way to make this decision. It's not like, if the MRI comes back clean, then let Jacob deGrom do whatever he wants. If he feels like his best route to normalcy is pitching again his next time out, let him do that. I think to instinctively blame, because there is some of this going on, Jerry, where there's some like blame already. With the hindsight being 2020, people are saying the Mets should have just put him on the injured list as soon as the flexor thing came up in his last start. Okay, well, he threw 3 perfect innings with 8 strikeouts. So he clearly had himself ready to go. Something else came up. It's nobody's fault. So I'm curious, when you hear that it should be predetermined, that no matter how clean this MRI comes back, no matter what this looks like, what these pictures look like of his body, that he needs time off. What do you think of that?
I think, to me, this is a sign of a really well-run organization with the Mets, with Luis Rojas, with Brian Chiclo and the training staff. They have trust that Jacob deGrom knows his body. He knows his body. They know the science. What they're going to do, though, is take his input. He has proven time and time again that he knows what's going on with his body. They're going to they're like, hey man, if we could guarantee that you're going to be 100%, if we give you a 2 weeks off, then we would do that. But they're going to listen to what Jacob deGrom has to say. There's no guarantee one way or the other, but they're taking his input. They're taking a healthy approach to a man's career that helps a team, and they're allowing him to do what he needs to do. They know that he's getting the proper treatment every day. They know that he's doing everything off the field that he needs to do. If it comes down to it and they all agree, and maybe Jake doesn't agree, but they come down and they look at the charts and they're like, look, he needs rest. If that's the fact, then they'll put him on the DL or the IL. But if it isn't that, they're accepting input, and that's fair because you want a pitcher to be able to give you feedback on what's happening. And right now, Jake is saying, let's not make any rash decisions. Let's feel this out and we'll go from there. And they did it, and something else cropped up. It doesn't necessarily mean that this wouldn't have happened had they put him on the IL initially. Right. Nobody knows. But what you can do is make an educated decision, like they are, taking this holistic approach and being collaborative. And I think it's beautiful. It's a great sign for the Mets, and it's a great sign for the players in the Mets organization that their input matters.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just think that last point you made is so true, that again, the people who are closest to knowing these things are making this decision. That's the good news. But none of us at home know that 2 weeks off is going to guarantee that when he comes back, he'll be healthy and there'll be no pain left. I just think, again, if deGrom was comfortable going out there, that is the most important thing. This is not, no Syndergaard a couple years back in Washington not wanting to get an MRI and not doing it because, he really wanted to pitch. deGrom is not that type. He's shown you that. You should be able to trust his opinion. So again, we shouldn't get too much deeper into it, Jerry, because who knows what's going to happen. We don't. It's now 12/17. We still don't have the news on the MRI, but obviously Mets fans hoping for the best, and in order for them to go deep, they certainly need to have him.
I wanted just to close it out by saying, like, as a Mets fan, you should feel good that the team and the organization and the player are all doing the best that they can with the information that they have to try to make this the better. They're not pushing through anything. They're not trying to do something crazy. They're trying to make the best informed decision, and that's all you can ask for.
Yeah. Once again, you're listening to the Shea Anything Podcast, brought to you by Verizon. It's 5G built right for the Mets from the network more people rely on, only on Verizon. Also, don't forget to check out episode 3 of SNY's digital series, Mets Perspective. It's also presented by Verizon. For an inside look at the Mets farm system, you can find it right now on sny.tv. Jerry joins us a couple days removed from a really interesting Twitter thread that he had about sticky stuff. And this is obviously something that's exploding in Major League Baseball, Jerry. We had on Baseball Night in New York last night, we were playing with some spider tack, actually. And, Wrecker put it on this is on the show, put it on his hands and put his fingers really close to his microphone, and you could hear it. And he said, occasionally, the only way I would know that somebody was using something is I could actually hear the ball leaving the hand. And he was like, that's what it sounded like. So it was kind of a cool moment. Tell us, for those of our viewers who haven't read your thread, why you're passionate about this issue.
Yeah, I think it's gotten to a point where guys they found a loophole, a gray area, an unenforced rule that was being allowed because the Major League Baseball is flawed. And so it's really dusty and hard to grip. And they were allowing pitchers to fix it on their own with the sunscreen rosin. And it didn't enhance their performance. It just made the baseball usable. And guys saw an opening there and they exploited it. And it became so abused that's where we are. Every pitcher is doing it. Not in Major League Baseball, I'd say under 50% were using some type of advanced sticky tack, whether it's spider tack or some amalgamation of different substances reduced to put something on the ball. I'd say 90% of guys, maybe even north of that, 90% of guys were using a sunscreen and rosin, which is something that was used to make the ball usable. You're not applying anything to your fingers to enhance spin. What you're doing is using the sunscreen and rosin mix to wipe the dusty film off of the baseball. And then you would just play. So guys abused it. MLB didn't fix the baseball, and they decided mid-season to make this an error. I'm excited that they're finally addressing it. I think it's a very poor choice to do it mid-season. You're seeing some ramifications. You know, Tyler Glasnow thinks he's certain that his UCL tear is because of the baseball. You're going to see some injuries that are going to be caused by the lack of any grip. So we're seeing that now. I think it's important that MLB is finally shutting that door, but the problem of the baseball still remains, and guys are going to have an issue gripping the baseball.
So I thought it was interesting, Trevor Bauer. Did you see that video of him on, I think it was Time Warner, the Dodgers network, where he was talking about the mud and how it dries? Like, that's what happened. They rubbed the Delaware River mud on the Major League Baseball, and it dries like mud does. So when you got a baseball thrown out to you, a new ball, after a foul ball or something, did it sometimes, like, I'm trying to think of what feels that kind of dusty, like a really starchy shirt. Like, it just feels like
it feels like a cue ball covered in chalk or dust. It really does. I had never had an issue with gripping the baseball from little league all the way through the minor leagues. I've never had an issue, right? I get to the big leagues in September of 2007, and all of a sudden the ball's slippery. And I'm like, what's going on? I choke the baseball. I'm going to use this baseball. I have this. My wife got this for me. It's my son's little footprint. So I'm going to use the side of it. But most guys hold the baseball. Pitching coaches teach that you hold it like an egg. So you hold it and you control it, but you don't squeeze it because you don't want to break it. And so that gives you the ability to manipulate it. I choke the hell out of the baseball. Everything that I hold is so deep into my hand, from my curveball, changeup, fastball. Everything is, I squeeze it and I choke it. That's what they call it. I never felt comfortable holding the ball because like most people do, because the ball would slip out, or I didn't feel like I had that control. I've never had an issue because of that with any grip during rain, whatever the elements are, I could figure it out. And then I get to the big leagues, my dream come true. And all of a sudden the main piece of equipment is unusable. You get yourself a night game in Oakland, it's 50 degrees. The marine layer comes in, that ball, no matter how much rubbing you do with it, with nothing, that ball will be chalky. And so I struggled in 2008 with it. And I thought it was me. I'm like, what do I do? I feel uncomfortable. I talked to guys. They're like, look, you put sunscreen on, so put sunscreen on. Then you take the rosin bag and you tap it on your arm. That's it. When you get a ball, you touch your arm, you wipe that layer of film off, and then the baseball feels like it has your whole life. It doesn't make you a better pitcher. It just makes the baseball like a baseball. And so that's what most guys do. And MLB, instead of, changing the baseball for grip, they decided to let that be the answer, and guys exploited it. Organizations, teams all encouraged it because they weren't tamping down on it, and it became an epidemic. You see it now. You see guys with that spider tack. That is cheating, and I'm glad to see it out of the game, but the problem is still the baseball.
So let me ask a stupid question, because even sunscreen and rosin, I've been picturing, maybe I'm an idiot, maybe some of our viewers are as dumb as I am. I've been picturing like you at your locker, like combining the two substances into something that was usable. So it really is like, put some sunscreen on your forearm like you would if it was a super sunny day and you don't want to get burnt. Add the rosin, which is behind the mound, legal on every big league mound, and just, put the rosin bag on your forearm and put your right hand on there. So what if somebody's wearing sunscreen? What if you have pale skin? You wear SPF 50 every time it's a day game, and you use the legal rosin bag. Is that going to get people kicked out of the game?
According to MLB, it is. That is literally how it happened. Guys are like, look, I combined these on accident, and it helps. So this is what everybody does. I did it every day in the bullpen. It was part of my routine. I would apply my sunscreen, even at night, but that's what you have to do for
Right.
the baseball. So I would put the sunscreen on my arm and I would tap the rosin on, and it was nothing, no crazy, jar like they have with the spider tack. You don't have to hide it on your glove, and you'll see it. If you look at video of guys, most of the time I wouldn't need it. It would come off of my hands and I could just rub it off the baseball. Sometimes, the baseball you'd need to, like, guys have it on their glove and they just go like this and then rub the baseball. That's all you need. It's as simple as that. I don't know how they're going to enforce it. Guys can't use sunscreen and rosin at the same time. That's the problem I have with what they've done. Without any input from players, they decided in the middle of the season to change the fundamentals of the game because they got mad, or they got called some names because guys are taking advantage. Guys cheated. That's the bottom line. And it was becoming everybody in the minor leagues was doing it. Like it was a thing. Like, no, they're not going to enforce it. Everybody else is doing it. I'm doing it. Organizations were promoting it because they don't want to be left behind. We saw it with sign stealing. If that didn't get shut down, it was going to get an epidemic. And that's where we were today. And again, instead of addressing the baseball, the issue, the fundamental problem, they decided to do it mid-season, and guys are scrambling. And I don't know how they're going to enforce it. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm excited to see it out of the game, but I'm also worried about what the ramifications are going to be for this mid-season.
So what they should have done is probably wait for the season to be over. Well, I know we're about to have a new CBA, and that brings up a whole different can of worms, but probably between seasons at some point said, okay, spider tack's illegal. Any of those real sticky weightlifter stuff, don't use that. But here's what you can use. We know you're using sunscreen and rosin because our ball is so powdery and slick, and we're going to fix that too. But what makes a better headline for Rob Manfred is like, no cheating. Like, don't do any of this. And it's never been allowed, when in reality, like so many baseball players have said in the last week, that you're basically told how to do this from team sources because it's not cheating. It helps you do your job. So It's not some Major League Baseball official telling you how to put sunscreen and rosin together, but like you're told how to do it because it's always kind of been legal, but not illegal.
I think it goes even deeper than that. Like if the MLB fixed the baseball, like every other league in the world has a baseball that out of the wrapper is usable. It's got a grip to it. So you wouldn't need sunscreen and rosin combination because that would be cheating somehow. It wouldn't actually add, according to the high speed cameras and stuff, it wouldn't actually make you a better pitcher, but you wouldn't even need to experiment with it.
Right.
The ball would just be the ball. If you were adding any bit of grip, that would be no doubt cheating because the baseball doesn't need anything enhanced. So if you just fix the baseball, it eliminates any gray area. And if you're putting anything foreign on the ball, you are cheating and you deserve to be, handled as a cheater. And so, that's, again, fix the baseball, fix the problem.
Yep. I think it's interesting that really, I thought you might have wanted, in what you're saying, Major League Baseball to shine a light on the real cheaters and fix the baseball. All you would need to do is fix the baseball.
That's all you would need to do. All these guys would still have used tack because they hadn't enforced it. Even organizations are promoting it, pitching coaches, because it's universally accepted, right? I've hated it all along. I think it's cheating. It literally is cheating. You're turning, what could be a major league average slider into a major league elite slider. That's cheating. You're using a foreign substance to gain an edge. I'm glad it's gone. I think it's been far too long that they've allowed this to happen. And with today's technology, guys can watch it, make them better. It's cheating. I'm glad it's out the door. It levels the playing field for other pitchers, for other levels. You don't have to doctor the baseball to feel like you're not being left behind. It's good. I'm glad it's gone. But again, If you fix the baseball, that's not even an issue. There's not going to be anybody if you're teaching somebody to cheat, then you're a bad coach. If you're encouraging another person, if you're doing it on your own, you're a bad person. But, I may be biased because I use sunscreen and rosin. I didn't ever considered myself a cheater because I wasn't gaining an edge. All I was doing was making the piece of equipment that's important usable like it has been my whole life.
Yeah, you're fixing their problem for them.
Yeah,
you were doing the hard work. Okay, so 2 more segments here, Jerry, before we go. We're going to start doing rain delay recommendations, gives our listeners the image of, you with your tablet or whatever during a rain delay, watching a movie. Now, part of that is because you're a huge movie buff. So what is your recommendation this week for our listeners?
So I wanted to start with a baseball movie. I figured that would be a great idea, right? And I wanted to start with something that maybe not everybody has seen. And I want to encourage people to see this movie. It's called Everybody Wants Some. It is a baseball movie made by Richard Linklater. He did Dazed and Confused. He's an amazing filmmaker. He's done a lot of good things. This is kind of in that Dazed and Confused era. So it's like 1980 Texas, and it records the few days before college starts. So it follows this baseball team and the individual players on this team. It follows the team for the 3 days leading up to the semester starting. And he did such a great job on capturing that weird time of a college baseball season, because it's really unique. Not everybody's on campus, the team's getting used to it, but the bigger part, and the part I recommend most, is they really get the characters that are on a baseball team. Every team I've ever been on has some semblance of these characters, the goofy guy, the super aggressive guy, the best player on the team that's kind of a jerk. Like, there's a lot of that. They nail the characters. It's a really funny story. It's got some college elements. It's the soundtrack is wonderful, and it's a beautiful snapshot of a simple time in baseball and a simple time in your life. And I highly recommend it. Everybody Wants Some, with an exclamation point, because of course it has an exclamation point.
I've never seen it, and now I feel like I'm sold. I think it reminds me of, I think we did favorite baseball movie on Baseball Night in New York, and maybe you did the sales pitch for it on the TV show too. So I'm sold. I got to see it, even though I'm notorious for taking forever on movie recommendations. John Harper's been trying to get me to see That Thing You Do for like 2 years, and I still haven't seen it.
That's a good recommendation. I like that movie.
Yeah, I love Tom Hanks. I know it's a good movie. I have to see it.
You won't regret it. It's a good movie. But as my partner on this, bi-weekly endeavor, I would hope that you would watch it within that 2 weeks. So you have a deadline. I think that helps. Okay. Maybe
I appreciate you applying.
Doug,
we'll see how close we are.
How close we are as friends, if we're just colleagues or if we're actually friends.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll find out.
I appreciate the little layer of guilt you're adding to that. All right. So we're going to do a 3-batter rule again, touchy subject. I love saying that. I'm not sure I'll ever stop that. We have had a segment called 3-batter rule since I started doing this podcast, but now we have a former left-handed reliever who probably deeply resents the 3-batter rule as much as about anybody. But the segment was created before Jerry's addition to this podcast, so we can feel okay about it. Jeff wants this to be a rapid fire edition. So quick answers, and we're putting you on the spot. Deal. Biggest Mets bullpen surprise this season?
That to me, it's Miguel Castro. He's always had the big arm. He's always had the ability to put up numbers that look incredible. But he's put it all together. He's done a little bit of everything. He's done multiple innings. And the guy is virtually unhittable when he's on. He's been the biggest bright spot for me. And the most surprised, because he's always had the potential, but he's really putting it together now, and they depended on it and they've needed it.
He has 3 pitches too. And he and Seth Lugo can both give you 2 innings and have more than 2 pitches. And it's a weapon. And I know that they've used Castro, especially early in the season, a couple times as kind of an opener and bulk guy. And I mean, I'm not saying that if I were Miguel Castro, I would potentially want to be a starter again because that's where he started and he clearly is putting it together. I'm just saying. But I agree with you. He's been really good. What excites you most about joining the Shea Anything roster?
Oh my gosh. It's the ability to talk baseball with Mets fans on a different level. Like to communicate, to interact with baseball fans. Like there's nothing better than talking baseball. I've loved this game for my whole life. I had the chance to play, and now I have the chance to kind of talk on a grander stage and create some type of buzz around it and speak about it. And I love the Mets, man. This is the perfect combination to do that. And so I'm excited for the interaction and to bring movie recommendations to the masses.
And one other unique thing that you're going to bring is our final 3-batter rule, quick baseball story. And this will be its own segment moving forward, but I kind of tasked you with coming up with one, short, long, silly, serious, whatever you want story per episode. So what do you got for us on your premiere episode?
I'll flip this around real quick and give you the option. So I'll give you 2 stories. You pick. It's going to be a Jim Thome story or a Ken Griffey Jr. story.
I mean, I got to go Griffey. We'll save Thome.
That deal. Okay. So Griffey, my favorite player growing up, hands down, like that beautiful swing. He was my hero. I grew up idolizing him. I had a chance to meet my hero a few times. I've faced him a few times. He's an amazing human being. So it's one of those, you're scared to meet your heroes because they're also a human being, but this guy he's been amazing. That being said, in Oakland in 2008, I am in 2008. Yeah, I think it was 8. I'm in the bullpen. We're playing the White Sox. This is when he had just come over from the Reds to the White Sox. I'm watching him in BP. I'm watching him, run around. I'm watching his batting practice, and I'm just like, man, that's it. That's him. I'm on the same field as this my hero. And the phone rings in the bullpen, and they're like, Blev, you got Griffey's coming up 4th. You gonna be ready? I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be ready. Oh my God, this might happen. So I get out there and I'm throwing, and I can't feel my fingers, and I'm so excited and so nervous. I get out. There's 2 outs. Ken Griffey Jr.'s up, and I'm facing him, and I had to step off and like take a deep breath because I'm like, oh my God, this is one of those moments where I'm not worried about my job. All I can think about is I'm throwing a pitch against Ken Griffey Jr. I bet he hits it 700 feet that way because I've seen him do it a million times. So I take a deep breath, and Kurt Young was our pitching coach then. And in my head, I heard Kurt say, don't worry, Blev, we're all on the same level here. He's a big leaguer. You're a big leaguer. Let's let it go. And so I did. I took a deep breath. I faced him. I struck him out on a curveball, and, he did that beautiful swing, and he walked back, and I'm walking down, and I get to the dugout. And after you finish an inning, you're supposed to stick around and wait for the team to hit. Then the pitcher replaces you. Then you can go up to the clubhouse and ice your arm, do your arm care, whatever it is. I'm sitting in the dugout. Manager comes over, says, great job. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, whoa. I just overcome with emotion. I start to I'm tearing up. I'm like, oh, what's happening? And it was like a culmination of things. And so I break the rules, the unwritten rules of baseball. And I lead my teammates, and I'm making my way. I'm not crying on TV. I'm not crying in the dugout in front of my teammates. So I go up to my locker, and I'm like a couple tears fall down. I'm sitting there. I'm like, what's going on? And so I'm like, all right, I need to talk to my brother. My older brother, 4 years older than me. Ken Griffey Jr. is his favorite baseball player too. He taught me everything I know. I call him like mid-game, like, hey, help me out emotionally. And so I call him. He answers. He's crying. I'm like, oh my God, you're supposed to be helping me. I'm crying. You're crying. And he's like, you did it. You struck out your hero. And I was like, man, it was amazing. Said, I love you, bro. I can't believe I did that. I hung up. I felt great. I let the tears out. It was a joyous thing. It's because I literally had done that thousands of times in the backyard. You know, when I'm pretending to be in the big leagues, you're not just throwing a bullpen, it's the World Series, and I'm facing the best in the biz, and that's Ken Griffey Jr. And I've struck him out 1,000 times because I'm not giving up a home run when I'm dreaming. And I got to do it. I got to live out a dream within a dream. It was one of the most amazing moments. He ended up signing a baseball for me. I have that. It's an emotional moment for me. It was a connection to my brother, and it was very grounding for me to appreciate baseball on another level, because I am a fan. I will always be a fan of the game. I just happen to have been able to play it for 13 years, and my paths ended up crossing with some of my childhood heroes. And so that's my Ken Griffey Jr. story.
That's great stuff, Jerry. But I was thinking the end of the story was going to be, then I walked back to the dugout and got absolutely reamed out by the manager and pitching coach for going into the clubhouse before I was supposed to.
I actually did. I did have to bring in a bottle of spirits for my pitching coach to kind of make amends for that gaffe. But that was on my own. It was like, hey, I'm sorry I left my teammates out to dry. Right.
If you don't understand why you did that, I mean, come on.
Yes,
You're done for the day. You're allowed to do that. But that's great stuff. And I can't wait for Jim Thome. Just a reminder, subscribe to the Shea Anything Podcast wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, wherever you're listening. We appreciate it, and rate and review us as well. A reminder that Shea Anything is brought to you by Verizon. It's 5G built right for the Mets from the network more people rely on, only on Verizon. Jerry, it's been a pleasure. Can't wait to do this bi-weekly moving forward. And we will talk to you in a couple of weeks, my friend.
It sounds good. It was a fun first episode. Thanks for having me.
And next time we talk, I will have seen Everybody Wants Some with an exclamation point.
You heard it. Hold yourself accountable, my friend.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you next week.